Hey guys, what's going on? This is Travis. I want to welcome you back to the channel. Guys, if you've been a long-term viewer of my A channel, Travis P11, you know that I featured several videos about my 2013 Honda Insight. We've been long-term owners of this vehicle. We're going on, I believe, 6 years of ownership and almost 100,000 miles. Any future videos on that car that I do, I'm going to relegate them to the B channel. I'm trying to keep this current B channel that you're watching, technology, coffee, stuff like that, food tests and stuff like that. So about a year ago, guys, we received a notice from American Honda that there was a technical service bulletin, not really a recall, but a service bulletin on our 2013 Honda Insight. And it turns out that a certain run of 2013, 2014 Honda Insights started to exhibit an oil burning problem. Well, there was a class action lawsuit that Honda lost, and they finally had to acknowledge the fact that there was, in fact, a problem with the car. So what Honda's doing for us is they gave us a 10-year unlimited mile warranty for engine oil consumption. Well, I mean, I noticed around 60,000 miles that our 2013 Insight was starting to burn oil. This vehicle, the majority of the mileage was for my wife doing an 80-mile round trip to work and back every day, going about 60 to 65 miles an hour. We're not, jackrabbit drivers and so on. We don't run the cars hard. We've got full documentation of full oil changes. So obviously, when this thing started burning oil, I was very, very disappointed. And I know every engine's different. Every car is different. Some cars just burn oil, especially with the super thin oil that they use these days. And so finally at this point at 94,000 miles, I noticed I keep having to add oil, every 800 to 1,000 miles. I wasn't really keeping track of how much. I just knew it had to go in, right? So I took the car into the Honda dealership just this morning, and we got the oil changed, and I said I'd like to go ahead and do an engine oil consumption test. Now, first of all, I don't know if you can get this done on every single car. I know that there's a series of 4-cylinder and 6-cylinder Hondas that have oil burning issues. They have bad piston rings and valves and this and that. I don't want to get too technical, but essentially it's so bad to the point that there's this extended warranty now that's on the car. And so we took the car in and we got the oil change done. And on the way out, the tech went over everything with me. They always do a great job at the Honda dealer here in Lincoln, Nebraska. They give you engine oil test documentation, and it says that you need to bring the car back within 1,000 miles. And what'll happen is I'm assuming they're going to drain it and measure every single drop. Now, I don't know how this works. They must just have a certain amount set aside for the filter, because some of that oil is going to stay in the filter when they take it off. Maybe it's like a half a quart. They just assume that would be there because it would be in the filter, and then they measure it all, and then they tell you essentially how much oil the car is used in the end when you bring it back in. Now, cons about this, I'm assuming, and what I've read in the Honda Insight forums, is that I'm responsible for the cost of another oil change in 1,000 miles, which, okay, I get it. I mean, I wish Honda would cover it maybe once, okay, because we're looking at $55, roughly $60 without a coupon. If I want to get that synthetic oil change done. And then what's good to know about this, they answered a lot of my questions on this document. It says to make sure that you check your oil frequently. And with my wife's car, I was literally checking it every week, because there are some weeks where we do a couple road trips back and forth and do 1,000 miles in 2 weeks, all right? And she was just doing 300, 400 miles a week herself, just driving to work. And so it tells you that you need to make sure that you frequently check the oil. And what's really good to know, it says here, if you do have to add the oil, they want to know approximately how much you added, the mileage at that point, and the date, and they'll take that into consideration. Because the question I had is, well, what if the oil light comes on? That's never happened before, but if it does, it says I'm a quart low, and I got to add a whole quart, and I can't get to you guys. What do I do? Well, this document addresses that question. So first of all, if you've got a Honda that might fall into that 2008 to 2014 range, if you've got one of those models, whether it's a V6 or a 4-cylinder, that has that oil burning problem, talk to the dealer, because there might be a service bulletin on it. Request an engine oil consumption test the next time you get an oil change, and then just follow the steps that are on the document. It's actually pretty easy to do. And it says here, you can add it if you need to, which is a good thing. And then they will tell you what the consumption rate is. On the 2013 Insight, if you're burning more than a quart in 1,000 miles, you essentially get not a complete engine rebuild, but a fairly substantial amount of engine rebuilding happens, pistons, rings, heads, and all that fun stuff. It's a pretty expensive repair, so obviously they don't want to do it unless they have to. Now, I did not check the dipstick. I might do that tomorrow morning and see if Honda has overfilled the dipstick. I'm not accusing them, but there's some people that say that this has happened before at certain shady dealerships. Not the one that I go to, okay, but in the forums people complain about this. Another problem that I think a lot of people run into is they don't check their oil. They'll go 5,000 miles, which is the interval for this car. We do it every 3, okay? But they'll go 5,000 miles and never check it, and the dipstick is bone dry because that sucker burned over a quart of oil. And at that point, it can start to do some serious damage to your engine and so on. Again, I'm not a mechanic. These are just my experiences as a bit of a car enthusiast. Okay, so the whole point behind this is I wouldn't recommend this consumption test, especially if your car doesn't have a service bulletin on it, because this is going to be on your dime, okay? If it is going to be covered, follow the recommendations for what they do. So this message is more for the 2013, 2014 Insight owner that has engines that are burning oil. I've had a few people chime in on my other videos saying, man, this is a bunch of BS. You know, I got a 2010 Insight that's got 150,000 miles on it. I know, because they didn't put the bad rings and the pistons in that run. It was in 2013 and 2014, like I mentioned in my recall video. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so that's what the whole engine oil consumption test is. So if you happen to have a future Honda down the road that has to go back because of this problem, and occasionally there's problems, that's essentially what's going to happen. So within 1,000 miles, maybe I'll do a follow-up video. We'll see what we find. We're going to take the car back. We'll pay for the oil change, see what the burning is. And I'm still disappointed that this car burns a quart of oil, or maybe burning a quart of oil in 3,000 miles. The problem you run into is you start to run into spark plugs getting fouled up, just muck builds up in the cylinder heads and so on, and it can also ruin your emissions equipment, which I'm going to have to pay for myself if that happens, catalytic converters, oxygen sensors, because the car has an oil burning issue. I think a car should be able to go, in my opinion, 3,000 miles without burning a quart of oil. That's just my opinion, all right? But otherwise, I think that's about it. So that's what's going on. That's what the engine oil consumption test is all about for Insight owners. Guys, if you like what you see, please like or subscribe. And you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, gunchannels.com, guntube.org, Gunstreamer, YouTube, all over the place. And also, if you have a different maker model, say a Toyota or a Chevy, and there's an oil consumption test going on, know what's going on, pay attention to the instructions, and hopefully if your vehicle is burning oil, it's going to get that repair that it needs. And one thing to remember, a lot of your modern cars, they use a 0W20 motor oil, which is some of the thinnest oil I think I've ever seen in my life. I mean, compared to 10W30, 0W20 is almost like water when you pour it out when it's really warm. Make sure you got a fresh quart of oil in your car so you can add oil if you need to. Mark off on the bottle how much is left on the side of the bottle if you have to add it. And you should be good to go if you have to take a car back in. Because, we do a lot of road trips, and we're not always near a Honda dealer to take it in. So, anyway, that's it, guys. Thanks for checking it out. Please like or subscribe. A lot more videos coming your way. Make sure you check things out. Y'all have fun. Be safe. And as you know, we will talk to you soon. All right, take care. Bye-bye.